Hello, I'm Mimi. I run a small art and content business, and today I'm going to be answering some of your questions about having a business or career as an artist. I got lots of great questions from you guys, so let's jump into them while I draw a little illustration that I'll be turning into a drawing challenge for my Instagram community. If you'd like to use any of the brushes that you see me using in this illustration, then they're available on my Etsy store. So the first question is, where did you start as a small business, or what information or sources did you learn from? I really felt like I didn't know anything when I decided to commit to becoming an illustrator, and I didn't have much money to invest in a course, so I mostly watched a lot of YouTube videos. I used them for motivation, for inspiration, and to give me a sense of direction of where I could take this. I knew that I wanted to be an artist in some capacity and that I wanted lots of flexibility in my business, so I decided that being an artist and a content creator would be a good place to aim for. I didn't feel like I had the skills to be a professional artist yet, and I wanted to learn how to create digital art. So I decided that I would draw every day to develop those skills and simultaneously build an audience on social media by sharing my progress. That way I could start building foundations without needing the skills up front, so it was a win-win for me. This is my actual YouTube watch history from the first week that I decided that I would start posting every day. It's a mix of other people's business stories, personal development books like Atomic Habits, art process videos, advice for growing on Instagram, advice for starting a YouTube channel, and anything that felt exciting or inspiring to me. I wanted to arm myself with lots of knowledge and advice that I could take with me as I started my own journey towards building an art and content business. And videos like this taught me a lot, but they also motivated me, because if these people could do it, then why couldn't I? Something that was a really common thread through a lot of these videos was having an audience. So I knew that the first phase of my business, for me at least, was not going to be focused on monetizing necessarily, but instead focused on developing my art skills and building an audience at the same time. The next question asks, how risky is it to start your own business and leave a secured 9-to-5 job? Well, this question totally depends on you and your own circumstances. A new business can take quite a while to become financially secure. So if financial security is important to you and your circumstances, then it could be risky to leave your secure job. You could always build the foundations of your business in your free time as much as you can, and then when it's a bit more developed, consider leaving your job or reducing your hours to part-time to slowly transition from full-time job to full-time self-employed. Some people have really quick success, but I don't want you to assume that it's guaranteed, even if someone online tells you that it is if you buy their coaching or course. Because for a lot of creators, it takes years to develop our art and content into a financially stable business. It took me about 2 years before my business was earning enough for me to live off, but I did take a slower, more organic route, and it's possible to earn sooner. If you do take the leap and leave your job to pursue your own business, then you might find it helpful to give yourself some deadlines and milestones to aim for. How long can you comfortably live without your secure income? Is it 4 months, maybe 6 months? Give yourself a set amount of time to hit certain milestones and give it everything you've got to achieve those milestones. If the finances are important, then treat it like a business. Do your research, make a plan, and commit to it, and you'll be giving yourself a much better chance of hitting those milestones that you need to hit for it to be viable. Now, I had a few similar questions about selling products in online shops, like what are the pros and cons of selling your art on your own website as opposed to a company like Etsy? To me, the pros of selling on Etsy are that it's a marketplace where shoppers who don't know you are coming to buy something. Etsy brings traffic because people know it's a place they can shop for products from independent creators. So you don't need an established audience to be found on a site like that. They deal with all the taxes for buyers in different countries, and to me that saves such a big headache. It's also really cheap to set up because the only upfront fee is a small listing fee, so that makes it really great for testing products. The cons are that there are lots of other sellers there, so it can be hard to be found, but at least there are things you can do to increase your chances of being found. They charge fees for using their service, and most of their fees are after you make a sale, but every service will charge a fee, so it just depends whether you prefer their fee model or a different one. If you host products on your own website, then you have more control of how everything looks. They can look more professional and make you feel more established, and if you use something like Shopify, it can be really easy to set up. A lot of e-commerce sites run on a monthly fee, so they might not take a percentage of every sale like Etsy does, but you'll have to pay regardless of whether you sell anything or not, so if you're just starting out, it can be more expensive. You'll have to drive your own traffic to your site, which can also be difficult if you're just starting online, but if you have good SEO and a strong social media community, you can make it happen. You also don't have to decide whether to sell on Etsy or your own website. You can definitely have both and just see which one works better for you. Maybe one is for digital downloads and the other one is for physical products, or maybe start with Etsy for a year until your audience grows and then switch over to your own website. There's nothing wrong with having both, and there's nothing wrong with trying things and then changing it later if it's not quite working out. On the topic of selling products, the next question is, when would I know that my art is ready to be monetized? You'll know that you're ready to start selling products or commissions when either A, people start asking you for them, or B, you start selling products or commissions and people buy them, which you can't know until you try. If you're sharing your art on social media, you'll likely come to a point when people start reaching out and asking whether you do custom commissions, or maybe they'll ask if you sell art prints. Obviously, that's a good indicator that people are interested in buying your art, and this is what happened to me after about 7 months of posting 5 times a week on Instagram. Alternatively, you could start making small batches of products to test whether people would like to buy them. It might take a bit of trial and error to find what works and what people are interested in, but give it a go and you'll either learn what does work or what doesn't, and both of those are useful to know. You'll need people to see your products to find out if they're interested, so you can try telling people on social media if you have a bit of an audience, or go to a local market and start listening to what people like the most. If people are interested, then that's amazing. Keep doing more of what works and developing your art and products. If people aren't interested, then no problem. Keep developing your art anyway and try asking for constructive feedback about what products people would like to see instead. It's an important part of any creative process to try things and learn what works. Also keep in mind that you might just not be showing your products to the right audience yet. Because if you're selling pretty pastel paintings to a group of people who prefer dark gothic art, then they're just not your people. Find where your audience shops and try selling to them there before deciding whether or not you need to pivot. Somebody asked me, do you ever worry that if your art style were to evolve, it won't be up to your current audience's liking and you'll have to face the consequences? I think it's fine for your art style to change, and I expect my art style to develop because I still have a lot to learn, so I wouldn't want to hold myself back for fear of losing some of my audience. My audience will either continue enjoying my style as it changes, or they won't and they'll stop following me, which is fine, because my new style will attract a slightly different audience. I think there's just as much risk of people unfollowing because your style never changes and you're always drawing the same things as there is of people unfollowing because your style develops. I don't think you should hold yourself back just to maintain your audience because your art might appeal to more people if you let it keep developing. I let my art style change slowly, partly because that feels most natural to me, and partly because it kind of reduces the risk of a sudden drop in my audience from changing my style overnight. I do try and maintain my art style for professional illustrating though, because I think it's good for clients to be able to see what style they'll be getting if they commission me to illustrate something for them. A similar question is, how do you decide between posting art for you and posting what people react well to? This can be tricky to navigate on social media because most of us are trying to grow an audience and want to share posts that perform well. I think you should be making art that you want to make, but there's a Venn diagram of this situation with what you like to make on one side and what your audience wants to see on the other, with an area overlapping in the middle that fulfills both. This is the area that I usually focus on when I'm trying to grow my audience, because I'm still making art that I enjoy, but I'm just focusing on what other people are enjoying as well. This can take a bit of time to figure out, but if you experiment with drawing lots of things that you like and see which of those things perform well online, then you can use that information to draw more of those subjects and a little less of the others. The next question is, what are your thoughts on how much impact finding an art style has on being successful? I suppose it depends on what success means to you, but I think that it's helpful to have an art style if you're trying to sell your art or have professional illustrating clients. That doesn't mean that your style can't change or that there's any rush in nailing it down to perfection, because I don't think there is such a thing. But if you're looking to sell commissions or be a picture book illustrator, then I think it's helpful for your portfolio to show off what kind of art you make. A portfolio of your art, whether it's your Instagram feed or on a website, kind of acts like a catalog for clients so they can browse your art and imagine with confidence what it might look like if they commission you to make something custom. If your portfolio doesn't feel consistent in style, then that might make some people a little unsure. So for me, it seems helpful for your portfolio of work to at least feel cohesive in some way. It doesn't mean that it all needs to look the same though. You might still have a bit of range in your techniques and style. I think there's a lot of pressure on having an art style, but it's also important to allow yourself to experiment without restriction. If you like playing around with different techniques but want to get some illustration work ASAP, then you could always try focusing on one style for a while to use professionally and sharing that online or on social media, and experiment with other styles on the side. If you've been looking for some creative help, then I want to really quickly tell you about all of the tutorials and resources available on my Patreon. I've been making goodies over there for 2 full years now, and so I've created quite the collection of how-to articles, step-by-step drawing tutorials, digital art tips, lesson videos, and drawing process walkthroughs. My beautiful Bluebell tier gets access to all of the resources that I make, and I even have a page on my website that links to all of the tutorials so you can easily see everything at a glance or check out what's available before you decide whether you'd like to join. You can cancel anytime. I'd love to see you there, so I'll leave the link in the description below. Now let's get back to the questions. I had a question that asks, do you ever run into art block or imposter syndrome even though this is your job? And how do you recover from these? I have imposter syndrome all the time. Even making videos like this, I think, well, who am I to be giving advice and answering all these questions? Because I just feel like the most normal person in the world, and there are much more experienced people than me. But whenever I feel like an imposter, I just try and turn it around and think, well, why not me? We don't always need to be the most qualified person for the job to be the right person for the job. It definitely helps that most of my work is done from the quiet and comfort of my own home, and it's usually just me and my laptop, whereas I think if I had to do things more face-to-face, I would find it harder. I've also learned as I've gotten older that it always looks like other people are confident and belong and know what they're doing, but we're just making those assumptions about them because we're not in their head listening to their insecurities and seeing the whole picture. Most of us are just winging it and figuring it out as we go along. So once I change my assumptions about other people from thinking they just know what they're doing to thinking, well, actually maybe they don't, or at least they certainly didn't when they were starting out, then I feel much more like I belong and less like an imposter. As for art block, I don't often get a proper creative block for very long, but I do get burnt out from just trying to juggle everything if I try and do too much at once. Sometimes I just don't have the capacity or motivation to keep doing all the tasks that make up my business, and when that happens, I have to step back and slow things down. I adjust my expectations and deadlines as much as I can because most of them are my own content deadlines, and I make space for myself among all the tasks that I'm trying to do. So I make space for taking time off, disconnecting, going for a long walk or to a cafe, and just let myself recharge. Sometimes I just need a day, but sometimes I need a few weeks and I just have to do the bare minimum tasks for the business for a little while until I feel properly recharged. It's quite rare that I really don't have the energy or motivation to draw, but that's probably because I have plenty of variety in my tasks and I'm not drawing all day every day, so I have natural breaks from it. If I don't feel like drawing though, and I need to for a project with a deadline like a picture book, then I have some ways that I can trick myself into feeling more motivated. And the things that work for me are usually listening to a really good audiobook to distract my brain, or putting on a familiar movie in the background. So then I got asked, what are some things you learn and let go of as an introvert running a small business? When I started working towards having an art and content business, I was really apprehensive about having to speak to camera or record voiceovers because I just didn't really want to put myself out there in the world like that. It felt awkward and draining, and I kind of just wanted to sit quietly in my own bubble by myself drawing without anyone else ever seeing what I was doing. But I also really wanted to share my journey. It was the thought of helping other artists by sharing my story that helped me over the hurdle of showing up online and putting myself out there, and I realized that I could do it in my own way. I didn't have to speak directly to camera, I didn't even need to show my face if I didn't want to, and I didn't have to be online and available for the community 24/7. So I just took really tiny baby steps towards the kind of content that I thought would be valuable to other people without stepping over my own boundaries. I learned that showing up online and being available pretty much every day is really draining as an introvert, and although I love my community, I have to be mindful of how much energy I put into answering messages and comments so that I don't overdo it and save some energy for myself and for other tasks. There are so many ways to show up online and create a business, so find a system that works for you. I feel awkward promoting myself online, so I just try and focus on making videos and products that are valuable to other people, and then I don't feel so weird about sharing them if I think that they could be genuinely helpful, and that's what works for me. This next question I get asked quite often, and it says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you schedule your time to find a good work-life balance. I think that having a good work-life balance as a self-employed creative is so difficult. Sometimes I'm quite good with it, but as soon as I have any room in my schedule, I get excited about an idea and I add more to my plate. I have so many things that I want to do and make that it's really easy to overcommit, but I think that I've gotten better with it over time. It was especially difficult for me over the first 2 years because I really wanted to make this work. So I felt like I needed to spend as much time as possible investing into my art and videos and just building this business in general so that it could start supporting me financially. I don't like to promote hustle culture, but I did work a lot in some stages last year in particular, and I'd be lying if I said that I didn't. But I always try to balance out those periods with periods of less work and more rest. I don't think that I can be perfectly balanced day by day, so I don't really aim for that. But if I can feel balanced over the course of, say, a whole month where I maybe work a lot more in an intense burst and then have some proper time off, then I'm okay with that. My advice would be to figure out what your priorities are outside of your work or business and make sure that those don't suffer and they get a chance in the spotlight as well. Because if your family or partner or fitness is super important to you, then you don't want to jeopardize that. Giving time and energy to the things that light you up will only help your business in the long run because you'll be happier for it. It would be nice if we could do everything and do it all at once, but we kind of have to be patient and just do one thing at a time. I always remind myself that I can create anything right now, but I cannot create everything right now, and that's okay. Let's talk about some business specifics. This question says, I would like to hear how you deal with the back end of things, like if you ever had to deal with registering for a business license. This is a super important part of running a business, even if it is a little boring. I can't give any proper advice for anyone else, partly because requirements vary so much and partly because I'm not qualified, but I can tell you my experience. I'm an Australian business, so I have an ABN, which is an Australian business number, and have a registered business name. My taxes are reasonably simple because I'm a sole trader, so my business income is just my personal income, so I pay personal income tax on everything that I earn. I can make some tax deductions that are directly related to the business that reduce my taxable income, and then I pay regular tax on what's left, which I have a lovely accountant to help with. It's quite easy to register as a business in Australia. I did it all online, but I know that it can be a lot harder in other countries, so I've been lucky in that sense. Even though I didn't think I'd be earning money for a little while, I registered my business really early in my journey because it validated what I was doing and made me feel more professional. And my intention was to start building my business, so it seemed like a good idea. The next question is, how do you break apart and schedule your day? Well, the answer to this question varies every month because I always seem to be doing something different. I like variety, so I don't usually spend all day on one task unless I really need to or just get in the zone with it, but more often I'll do several smaller tasks over the day. How I schedule changes quite a bit, but it always follows a pretty similar pattern. I work best in the morning, so I like to start work fairly early, anywhere between 6 and 8 a.m, and I spend my morning doing tasks that require the most energy or the most thinking. Drawing is one of the easier and more enjoyable tasks for me, so I'll normally do that in the afternoon when I don't have as much energy for tackling something difficult. So mornings are usually for emails like negotiating with partnerships or sponsorships, maybe reading or signing a contract, that sort of thing. Then I might work on a script or make some Patreon benefits for the morning with a morning tea break somewhere in there. I tend to have a long lunch because I started work fairly early, and then I often spend the afternoon doing any drawing that I need to do, maybe just for Instagram or maybe for a picture book. Just this month actually, I've been getting my partner Dan to help me with my schedule because he's really logical and organized and I'm really not. And that's been really good because it takes the stress of all the tasks out of my head and puts them into a better system that I don't have to think about. So I got asked a question that I don't know if I've been asked before, or at least not for a long time. It says, how did you come up with or settle on your business name? Any advice for coming up with a simple creative name if your name isn't as cute and snappy as Mimi? Well, actually Mimi isn't really my name, and I'm not sure if I've really mentioned that before. It's just a nickname that I thought would be better suited to being online than my real name. My actual name is Misha, but it's not spelled phonetically and maybe 1 in 1,000 people know how to pronounce it when they read it, so I thought my nickname would just be a lot easier. Leave a comment below with how you think my name Misha is spelled, and we'll see how many of you can guess it right. My brothers call me Mimi, and they used to call me Mimi Mukau when I was a little kid. So when I needed a name for my Instagram account, I thought Mimi was a bit too simple, but Mimi Moo was easy enough to read and fairly unique. And I wanted something art related in the name so that people can see at a glance what I do. So Mimi Moo illustration was what I settled on. Lots of artists just use their full names for their business name. I think it depends whether you're looking to predominantly get work as yourself as a professional artist, or whether you're looking to be more of a brand that sells products or creates content. It's one of those things that's really easy to overthink, so try and go with your gut about what sounds good to you, and of course check that it doesn't already exist. So thank you so much for drawing with me today and having a cute little chat. All of the brushes that I used in this illustration are available on my Etsy store, so you can get them for Photoshop or Procreate if you'd like to use them as well. I'm also using this illustration for a drawing challenge on Instagram, so come and join us over there. If you enjoyed this video, then consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!